Welcome back to Cybersecurity HQ's daily news report for November 26, 2024.
It's been a whirlwind of a week.
It really has. From international law enforcement crackdowns
Oh, yeah.
to zero-day exploits.
Uh-huh.
And even, maybe a bit of good news for cybersecurity investors.
We gotta take those wins when we can get them.
We do, right?
Yeah.
So let's jump right in, I guess, with Interpol's Operation Serengeti. Over 1,000 arrests across 19 African nations
Yeah.
in just 2 months.
That's massive. That's a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
It really is. And it just goes to show, again, the truly global nature of cybercrime.
Right.
What's interesting here is they weren't just targeting, some local scams or anything like that. They disrupted operations that were impacting victims worldwide. We're talking about financial losses totaling $193 million.
Yeah, and the diversity of cybercrimes targeted is really eye-opening.
It is.
We're talking ransomware, business email compromise, we're talking digital extortion, online scams. There was even a case in Cameroon using a multi-level marketing scam as a front for human trafficking.
Wow. It's just a stark reminder that cybercrime isn't some abstract concept, right? It has real-world consequences, oftentimes very severe.
Speaking of severe consequences, let's turn our attention to the critical vulnerabilities patched by VMware and IBM this week. So we're not talking about minor bugs here.
No.
We're talking privilege escalation
Oh.
and remote code execution flaws,
Yeah.
potentially giving attackers complete control over your systems.
Oh, yeah. VMware products, especially, they've been in the crosshairs a lot lately.
Yeah.
The fact that CISA has multiple VMware vulnerabilities on its known exploited list, I think, speaks volumes about the severity and the urgency of this issue.
Right, and IBM isn't off the hook either. So the RCE vulnerabilities they patched, they affect critical cybersecurity products like Data Virtualization Manager for ZOS and Security SOR.
Right.
And to be clear, for those unfamiliar with the term, RCE stands for Remote Code Execution, which essentially means attackers can run their malicious code on your systems.
Basically, yeah, they can do whatever they want at that point. And the potential fallout, even though no active exploitation has been reported yet, is immense.
Right.
I mean, it's a constant cat and mouse game.
Right.
Hackers discovering vulnerabilities, companies racing to patch them, and then boom, the cycle repeats itself.
Right. Which brings us to the Array Network's gateway vulnerability.
Right.
So Melissa just added this one to its known exploited list.
Yep.
Because a China-linked threat group known as Earth Kasha, also tracked as APT-10, has been actively exploiting it. And here's the kicker. The patch was released back in March.
Oh, wow. That's concerning. I mean, what's really concerning here is just how severe this vulnerability is. It has a CVSS score of 9.8 out of 10.
Wow.
Meaning it's incredibly easy to exploit. It can give attackers complete control of the affected system.
Right.
To put that into perspective for, maybe some listeners who aren't as familiar with CVSS, it's essentially a way to standardize a score for how bad is this vulnerability. And 9.8 is about as bad as it gets.
Right.
Like, if you have this vulnerability and you haven't patched it, you are in deep trouble.
Wow. And it's not just array networks that Earth Kasha is targeting. They've also been observed exploiting vulnerabilities in Fortinet and ProSelf products, indicating a wider campaign.
Wow. So this isn't just a one-off, right?
Yeah.
They're really going after a lot of different targets.
Yeah.
And, I think this brings up a really critical takeaway for all of us in the cybersecurity community, right? Staying on top of patch management is absolutely crucial. We can't afford to be complacent, especially when threat actors are actively exploiting known vulnerabilities.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to patch your systems, folks.
And while we're on the topic of vulnerabilities, let's shift our focus to the CleanTalk anti-spam plugin for WordPress. Over 200,000 websites are potentially at risk.
Yeah.
Due to two critical vulnerabilities, both scoring a 9.8 on the CVSS scale.
Yeah, that's rough. And the initial patch that was released didn't even fully address the problem. They actually had to release a second patch.
Wow.
And what's even more alarming is that almost half of the installations are still unpatched.
Oh, wow.
Which means they're just sitting ducks for attackers.
Right.
It's really worrisome.
And the consequences can be devastating.
Yeah.
As we saw with the recent ransomware attack on Blue Yonder, a major provider of supply chain management software.
Right.
This one has real-world implications impacting how businesses operate and, frankly, how goods reach consumers.
Absolutely. I mean, we're seeing the fallout already. Starbucks is having issues with employee scheduling. UK supermarkets like Morrison's and Sainsbury's are having to resort to manual processes in their warehouses. It's a mess.
Wow.
This attack really demonstrates just how far-reaching these cyber attacks can be. They can disrupt critical infrastructure, they can impact our daily lives in a very real way.
It's a powerful reminder that cybersecurity isn't just an IT issue.
It's not.
It's a business issue, it's an economic issue, it's a societal issue.
It really is all of those things.
Yeah.
And we need to start treating it that way.
Now let's delve into some nation-state activity, starting with Romcom, a Russia-linked threat actor known for their use of zero-day exploits.
Yeah, 0 days, they're always a bit of a nightmare. Because you're exploiting vulnerabilities that are unknown to the software vendor.
Right.
Which means there's no time to patch before an attack.
Right.
So in this case, Romcom targeted both Mozilla Firefox and Microsoft Windows.
Wow.
So we're talking about a potentially massive number of users.
Right. So they used a fake website to lure victims in and chain together 2 zero-day vulnerabilities to execute their, their Romcom RAP malware, which is a remote access Trojan.
Right.
And that can give attackers significant control over compromised systems.
Yeah, once they have that access, they can pretty much do whatever they want. Steal data, install more malware, you name it.
Right. And what's troubling here is that this isn't Romcom's first radio.
It's not, no.
With zero-day exploits, they've demonstrated this capability before. Their tactics, it seems, are growing increasingly sophisticated.
Yeah. I mean, they're not slowing down. If anything, they're getting better at what they do, which is a scary thought.
And while we're on the topic of nation-state actors, another China-linked group, Earth Estuaries, has been busy deploying a new backdoor called Ghost Spider to target telecommunications companies
Right.
in Southeast Asia and beyond.
Yeah.
They've already compromised over 20 entities across 12 or more countries, including some government networks.
Yeah, this isn't just about data theft. This is about strategic access to critical infrastructure,
Right.
positioning themselves for potential espionage or disruption.
Right.
You know, what's particularly noteworthy is that Earth Estuaries has a history of exploiting vulnerabilities like Ivanti and Proxy Logan.
Right.
So they're not afraid to use whatever tools they have at their disposal to achieve their objectives. It's pretty clear they're in it for the long haul.
Speaking of persistence, let's circle back to the Array Network's vulnerability. So CISA is urging all federal agencies to patch this flaw immediately, setting a deadline of December 16th.
Yeah.
So this underlines just how serious this issue is.
Oh, absolutely. And the statistics are pretty sobering. According to VulnCheck, over 440,000 internet-facing hosts are still vulnerable to this exploit. That's a lot of open doors for attackers.
Wow. Okay, let's shift gears and talk about the financial sector. We've all heard about the increasing cyber threats they're facing, but some experts are predicting that 2025 could be a turning point.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are pretty staggering. Global cybercrime costs are projected to hit $10.5 trillion
Wow.
by 2025.
Wow.
And that represents a 15% annual growth rate.
Wow.
So we're talking about a massive amount of money.
Yeah.
And, you know, with the emergence of AI-driven attacks and the, you know, looming threat of quantum computing,
Right.
the financial sector is really kind of at a crossroads.
Right. And we're seeing this paradigm shift in security approaches.
Mm-hmm.
Concepts like zero trust architecture, AI-powered threat detection,
Yep.
and quantum-resistant cryptography are no longer buzzwords. They're becoming essential survival tools.
They really are. I mean, in this rapidly evolving landscape, if you're not using these tools, you're going to be left behind.
And it's not just about technology.
Yeah.
The human element remains a crucial factor in cybersecurity. We've seen this surge in insider threats, with a recent report indicating that 83% of organizations experienced insider attacks in 2024, which is a significant jump from last year.
That's a huge increase.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not surprising given the rise of hybrid work and cloud adoption. It's making it much harder to manage security effectively.
Right.
And the costs of these insider attacks, I mean, they're skyrocketing too, averaging over $1 million per incident. Not to mention the damage to reputation and trust. It can be devastating. So organizations really need to prioritize comprehensive security awareness training, robust access controls, and data loss prevention strategies if they want to mitigate this growing risk.
It's a multifaceted challenge.
It is.
And complacency is not an option.
Absolutely not. We need to be proactive, we need to be vigilant, and we need to constantly adapt our security posture if we want to stay ahead of the curve.
Speaking of adapting, let's look at what's happening with heat pay audits. A recent report from the Office of Inspector General has raised concerns about the effectiveness of the OCR's high-pay audit program in improving cybersecurity within the healthcare sector.
Yeah, I mean, the audits themselves, they're often criticized for being too narrow in scope.
Right.
They tend to focus primarily on administrative safeguards rather than on the technical defenses.
Right.
And even when issues are identified, the OCR often lacks the resources to effectively enforce corrective actions.
Right. So this is a major concern. Given the sensitive nature of healthcare data, the increasing number of cyber attacks targeting this industry, stronger enforcement mechanisms are needed,
They are.
and a broader audit scope, frankly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we need to do more to adequately protect patient information.
Now let's wrap up this segment with some news about CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. So the agency is facing an uncertain future. Under the new administration,
Oh, yeah.
there are proposals to move it under the Department of Transportation, potentially diminishing its authority and independence.
Right.
There's also pushback from industry groups regarding the Cyber Incident Reporting Act, or CERCISE,
Uh-huh.
which mandates reporting cyber incidents to CISA.
Mm-hmm.
Some argue that the reporting requirements are too burdensome and could discourage information sharing.
Right. And to add to the uncertainty, CISA's director, Jen Easterly, recently announced her resignation.
Right.
So the agency's future direction under new leadership is still kind of up in the air.
Right.
It's a pretty pivotal moment for CISA. Yeah.
And the decisions that are made in the coming months are going to significantly impact the nation's cybersecurity posture.
Cybersecurity is a constantly evolving landscape, and staying ahead of the curve requires vigilance, adaptability, and a willingness to embrace new technologies and approaches.
Absolutely. Continuous learning, collaboration, a proactive mindset, those are all essential for success in this field.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this first segment. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll be back with more cybersecurity news from around the globe.
Sounds good. Welcome back. Let's broaden our perspective a bit and look at some global cybersecurity trends.
Okay.
For instance, Nigeria. They're experiencing quite a concerning surge in cyber attacks.
Yeah, that's right. A new report reveals over 18,000 cyber attacks monthly. Financial institutions are the primary targets, with fraud losses reaching billions of nairas in recent years.
Right. It really echoes what we were talking about earlier
Yeah.
about the financial sector being a prime target
Right.
globally.
And it highlights the need, really, for advanced AI-driven defenses to counter these increasingly sophisticated attacks.
Sounds like traditional security measures aren't cutting it anymore.
Not really, no. There's simply not enough in today's threat landscape.
Yeah.
Organizations need to shift from a reactive to a proactive approach.
Right.
This means investing in technologies that can anticipate and mitigate threats
Right.
before they can cause any real damage.
While Nigeria grapples with these attacks, Australia is taking a different route to enhance cybersecurity, launching a national digital ID system
Right.
to bolster security across various sectors.
Yeah, the initiative aims to improve identity verification, reduce fraud, and strengthen protection for critical data. To build trust in the system, they're implementing strong encryption and privacy regulations.
It's a bold move.
Yeah.
But like any ambitious project, it comes with its own set of risks. I mean, centralizing sensitive information makes it a more appealing target for attackers.
It does, yeah. I mean, there are always concerns about privacy, right?
And the potential for misuse of this data. It's a constant balancing act between security and convenience.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, a prime example of that.
Yeah.
We're seeing similar initiatives emerging in other countries. So it'll be interesting to observe how these digital ID systems evolve and their overall impact on the cybersecurity landscape.
Shifting back to the U.S., there's encouraging news on the legislative front. A bipartisan group of senators has introduced a bill focused on strengthening cybersecurity in the healthcare sector.
Okay. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
It's called the Healthcare Cybersecurity and Resiliency Act of 2024. And it addresses some of the weaknesses that we talked about earlier regarding IPT audits.
That's great news. Can you elaborate on some of the key provisions?
So the bill proposes funding for cybersecurity readiness, training programs for healthcare providers, and the development of a comprehensive incident response plan. It also advocates for updated regulations. That would require healthcare entities to adopt more robust security measures. This feels like a significant step towards improving cybersecurity in healthcare, a sector that's I mean, incredibly vulnerable
It is.
to these attacks.
Right.
And the potential consequences for patients
Oh, they're huge.
are huge. So this type of legislation is long overdue.
It is, yeah. It's definitely a step in the right direction. Hopefully, this bill will gain the necessary support and ultimately lead to significant improvements in healthcare cybersecurity.
So far, we've covered a broad range of topics today, from international law enforcement operations and zero-day exploits to the vulnerabilities of the financial and healthcare sectors, the rise of AI-driven attacks, and the importance of basic security hygiene. It's clear that cybersecurity is a complex and constantly evolving field.
It is. And you know what I find particularly striking is the interconnected nature of these issues. We're seeing like a convergence of factors that are making cyberspace more dangerous than ever before. The increasing sophistication of attackers, the rapid proliferation of connected devices, the growing reliance on cloud computing, and the blurring lines between the physical and digital worlds are all contributing to this heightened risk environment.
And as we continue to embrace digital transformation, these challenges will only continue to grow in scale and complexity.
Exactly. And that's why prioritizing cybersecurity is more critical than ever before for individuals, for organizations, and for governments. A reactive approach is no longer sufficient. We need to be proactive, investing in the right technologies and developing the necessary expertise. And most importantly, we need to foster a culture of collaboration and information sharing to build a more secure and resilient digital future.
I couldn't agree more. Staying informed is a crucial first step in that journey. That's why we encourage everyone to check out Cybersecurity HQ's website. It's a fantastic resource for in-depth reports, breaking news, expert analysis, and insights into the latest cybersecurity trends.
We also have a dedicated job board for anyone looking to start or advance their career in this dynamic and ever-evolving field.
And of course, don't forget to subscribe to our weekly newsletter, which is read by over 70,000 cybersecurity professionals. It's packed with insightful articles, expert interviews, and practical advice that can help you stay ahead of the curve in this rapidly changing landscape.
You can find all of these resources, including full transcripts and show notes for today's episode, on our website. But before we wrap up, I'd like to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Please do. We've covered a lot of ground today, and it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the sheer volume of cyber threats we've discussed. It can certainly seem like a never-ending battle.
Absolutely. But it's crucial to remember that we are not powerless. Every step we take to strengthen our security posture, no matter how small, makes a difference. Whether it's diligently patching our systems, enabling multi-factor authentication, or simply being more aware of the risks we face, we have the power to collectively make cyberspace a safer place.
Those are some great points to remember. It's easy to get discouraged when you hear about these large-scale attacks and sophisticated tactics. But individual actions, multiplied across millions of users, can make a tangible difference.
Exactly. Cybersecurity is a shared responsibility, and we all have a role to play in building a more resilient digital future.
So to our listeners, we encourage you to take what you've learned today and put it into practice. Share this knowledge with your colleagues, friends, and family. Let's work together to create a safer and more secure online environment for everyone.
That's a great call to action. We're all in this together.
And on that note, we'll wrap up today's Cybersecurity HQ News Roundup. Thanks for joining us, and stay safe out there. Before we wrap up today, there are a few more stories we need to cover. Let's shift our focus to a topic we haven't really touched on yet, the role of academic research in advancing cybersecurity.
Yeah, it's an often overlooked but really vital aspect of the cybersecurity ecosystem. Researchers in academia, they play a crucial role in identifying vulnerabilities, developing new security techniques, and raising awareness about emerging threats.
And a great example of this is a group of researchers from Stony Brook University, who recently received an award for their groundbreaking work uncovering vulnerabilities in blockchain technology.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, their research focused on a type of attack they call typo-squatting 3.0,
Okay.
which it really preys on human error. You know how we've all seen those phishing emails, right?
Right.
With slightly misspelled website addresses.
Yes.
Well, this is a similar concept, but applied to the world of blockchain. So attackers are exploiting typos in cryptocurrency wallet addresses to redirect funds to their own accounts.
So instead of sending your Bitcoin to your intended recipient, you could end up sending it to a scammer because of a simple typo.
Exactly. And the losses can be significant, sometimes amounting to thousands of dollars.
Wow.
This research really highlights the fact that even cutting-edge technologies like blockchain are not immune to cyber
Wow.
attacks.
It really underscores the importance of the human element in cybersecurity.
Hmm.
We often focus on these technical vulnerabilities, but human error remains a major weak point.
Absolutely. And, that brings us to another example of how even like seemingly simple attacks can have a massive impact.
Right.
The Matrix campaign. Researchers at Aqua Security uncovered this vast botnet composed of over 35 million routers worldwide,
Wow.
all compromised and weaponized for launching DDoS attacks.
And for our listeners who might not be familiar, a DDoS attack, or distributed denial of service attack, essentially floods a targeted server with traffic, overwhelming its resources and making it inaccessible to legitimate users.
Exactly. And what's interesting about the Matrix campaign is that the attackers are leveraging relatively basic techniques. Like, we're talking weak credentials, brute force attacks, stuff that's been around forever.
So it's not always about these advanced hacking techniques or zero-day exploits.
Nope.
Sometimes it's the simple things.
Sometimes the simplest things can cause the most disruption.
Wow.
Yeah, it highlights the importance of, strong password hygiene, regular security updates, and basic network security practices. Even, script kiddies, as they're often called, can cause significant damage with the right tools and a large enough botnet.
Speaking of tools, let's circle back to the role of artificial intelligence in cybersecurity. We've talked about how AI is being weaponized by attackers, but it can also be a powerful tool for defense.
Right. A recent report by the Capgemini Research Institute explored this very concept, and their research revealed that while a significant number of organizations have suffered financial losses due to AI-driven attacks, the vast majority believe that AI is essential for enhancing threat detection and response capabilities.
So it seems like we're in an AI arms race,
Yeah.
with both attackers and defenders leveraging this technology to their advantage.
Absolutely. Organizations need to embrace AI and integrate it into their security operations, from threat detection and incident response to data analysis and vulnerability management.
It sounds like AI is no longer a futuristic concept in cybersecurity.
It's not. It's becoming a necessity. And that brings us to our final point for today. We've explored such a wide spectrum of cybersecurity news, covering everything from international law enforcement operations and nation-state activity to ransomware attacks and zero-day exploits, the rise of AI, the importance of basic security hygiene. It can feel overwhelming, but it's crucial to remember that we're not powerless in the face of these threats.
I completely agree. It's easy to get caught up in the headlines and feel like we're constantly on the defensive. But it's important to remember that we can make a difference.
We can. Every step we take to improve our own security posture, no matter how small it might seem, it contributes to a safer online environment for everyone.
Whether it's diligently patching our systems, enabling multi-factor authentication, using strong passwords, being cautious about phishing emails, or simply staying informed about the latest threats, we can collectively make a difference.
Cybersecurity is a shared responsibility. It's not just the job of security professionals or government agencies. It's something we all need to be actively engaged in. And that's the message we want to leave our listeners with today. Take what you've learned from this deep dive and apply it in your own lives. Share this information with your colleagues, friends, and family. Let's work together to build a more secure and resilient digital future for everyone.
Thank you for joining us for today's Cybersecurity HQ News Roundup. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and stay safe.